Elliott wave theory. What is it? Alright, so we've done a bit of discussion regarding fundamental analysis. Let's head back over to technical analysis and let's talk about the Elliott wave theory. Now, if you remember in the previous modules when we spoke about trends, remember in an upwards trend, we had what's called a thrust and a reaction, a thrust and a reaction. And likewise, in a downwards trend, again we had thrust, reaction, thrust, reaction. Now essentially, what Elliott wave is we're going to be looking at the thrust and the reaction in more detail. So the Elliott wave is a 5-3 wave theory. Now what I mean by that is it consists of a first 5 initial waves, which goes as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, followed by 3 corrective waves, which we call A, B, C. Okay? So this is the typical structure of an Elliott wave. Now it's important to be able to identify an Elliott wave on the charts and to be able to identify it correctly. So what we're going to cover is the properties of an Elliott wave. The properties of an Elliott wave is wave 1. You can see wave 1 and then we've got wave 2. Wave 2 cannot go below wave 1. Okay? So that's the first property. Wave 3 is typically the longest wave, and then wave 4, as you can see this one here, the one coming down, wave 4 typically should not go into wave 1's area, below wave 1's peak, okay? And then wave 5 is at the top, which should be the peak of the Elliott wave. Then we have A, B, C. And as you can see, B does not go above the point of 5. So we've just spoken about the properties of an Elliott wave. Now, when you're on the trading charts and when you're looking to identify an Elliott wave, make sure all those properties are met. That will make it a stronger and more likely Elliott wave. Because there's a lot of ups and downs in the market, it might be difficult to really find a good Elliott wave. So try not to force spotting Elliott waves, but rather let it jump out at you naturally. If you look at the chart and you can see clearly the Elliott wave structure, like we've said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C. If you can find that structure and it's very clear to you, then you could keep that in mind, alright? Another thing is going back to the trends. Remember thrust and reaction. Essentially thrust and reaction is the Elliott wave. We have the impulse or the thrust and then the reaction. So that's another thing to keep in mind when looking at thrusts and reactions. So to recap, Elliott wave consists of 5 impulse waves and then an ABC corrective waves. Like we said, in finance there's many different words for the same thing. For example, we could say impulse wave, corrective wave, or we could say thrust, reaction, we could say thrust, retracement, correction. These are all words for the same thing. Now, remember, if you use Elliott wave, if you identify it within a trend, you could look for the thrust and the reaction. Remember, then you could also start adding in some of the other technicals that we spoke about, such as candlesticks, as well as if you had a sideways trend as well, and you found an Elliott wave within that sideways trend, we know that the wave 5 is the peak, so it's to start to turn around and then provide us ABC. But we'd also look for the candles. So we would have had a resistance, we would have seen a resistance level, candlesticks, which will be the pivot candles, as well as the Elliott waves pattern. Therefore, we could expect the market to come down, showing us an ABC potential move. So as you can see, now is the stage to start adding the previous types of analysis up in order to interpret the market.